today and I'll go to school tomorrow. First impressions are incredibly important.
Honey, you can make a wonderful first impression.
Brenda, how could you?
He was a jerk, okay?
I've made my choice and I choose me.
North-South Connection podcast listeners, JT here with another episode of 90210 NoSo on the North-South Connection podcast network, breaking down one of the greatest television shows in history, Beverly Hills 90210. And of course, doing that alongside me is the Steve to my Brandon, Mr. Tim Capel. Tim, how are you?
I think I was the Dylan to your Brandon in the last episode, but I'll take it because in our character rankings, which we'll get into, Steve has been quite high. Although this episode, let's just say, JT, they can't all be winners, right? But we do have a very special new guest joining us for this episode.
We do.
I'll let you bring him in.
One of my favorite things about doing the show is really varying up our guests, Tim, and finding out just how many 90210ites there are out there, because they're piling up. I've got a lot of messages, and I'll say it again for anyone who's new to listening or you're checking this out, like, reach out if you want to be on an episode, even if you haven't really done podcasts before. But if you're a big 90210 fan or you want to dive in and check it out, I am Tim and I are happy to add you to the list. We have a cool little guest list so far. Just pick it up, anyone who's interested in joining us. And that is how this guest came across my radar, because I was informed he was a big 90210 fan. Then I started commenting about the pod, and I said, you know what? It's a good guy. We're going to get him in the fold. That is our good buddy, Mr. Drew Wardlaw. Drew, how you doing?
I'm doing good tonight, boys. How are you?
Good, man. Excited to have you here.
Absolutely. Excited to be here for this true gem of an episode here.
So this is episode 4 of season 1. But before we dive into the episode itself, why don't we do this? I want to do 2 things. First, I want to give the previous grades of our past episodes. So, Tim, we've done 3 so far. The first 2, I gave a 5.5 out of 10, and the third one I gave a 5 out of 10. Where were you lying so far to this point?
Yeah, kind of hovering in that same territory. I think the pilot has been our strongest episode to date, which is saying a lot, because you sort of you come into a pilot being almost more critical, just because it has so much set up to accomplish. But I don't know that the subsequent episodes that we've covered, the 2 after that, have been huge highlights, although they have introduced, we're still in the early going, so we've gotten some character introductions. But it's still the show sort of finding its legs. So my grades weren't exactly the same as yours, but I mean, I'm kind of right in there. So the thing about this show is I think that people, even big fans of the show like we are, really look back on and remember the broad strokes, right?
Correct.
The big things that happen, the major episodes, and you sort of don't dwell on the minutia of, okay, there were 290 some odd episodes of this series. So is every single thing going to stand out in your mind? Certainly not. And certainly not in the really early goings where, it is very episodic, and it's still, the show becoming the show.
Well, and the funny thing is, I remembered the main angle of this story, but I also did not remember it being this soon. I was actually kind of surprised when it popped up and this was the one. So
I think that's kind of been the case with every episode so far, is that, because so JT, I messaged you right when the first episode came out, and I said, hey, this is perfect. I just started my own rewatch of the show as well, so I'm going to be watching along with you guys. And it's even the pilot episode, I didn't remember that the pilot was when that big house party was. I thought that was a little ways down in the season as well. So it seems like every episode that's happening.
So, Drew, obviously you're rewatching the show now, but why don't you take a minute or two, like we usually do, to kick off these episodes, and tell us what your experience as a Beverly Hills 90210 fan, when you started watching, how often do you rewatch, just kind of what is your level of fandom, and when did you get in?
Yeah, so I got in. Now I would catch an occasional episode when it started in 1990. So I would have been 6 at that time. So if my parents would go out like at night or something, my sister's older, we would kind of find it. We would try to watch like bad stuff on TV. And so we found 90210. But I wasn't a regular watcher or anything. And then when it started running in syndication on the WB, that's when I got really into it. And so that would have been I don't know when that started. 90, 93, 94, 95, I don't know. Somewhere
it was like
there.
94, 95, I want to say.
Okay.
Because it sounds like we're about the same age. I had largely the same experience of watching it on syndication, which I've talked about as well.
Yes, yeah. And so that was the one thing that my sister and I bonded over was 90210. And it was on in the afternoon when my parents were at work, so we could watch it free and clear. And we loved it. And so that was the first they showed through the college years. Yeah. Because I remember specifically the last episode when they graduate college. And then I think at some point they moved on past that as well. But I don't remember specifically. But anyways, so I was a big fan. I watched all those episodes in syndication. And after that, I had, through some way or another, I ended up seeing a couple episodes after the college seasons. And then I fell off. And then when it came out on DVD, I got the DVDs and I ended up watching, again, kind of like the first 5 or 6 seasons through college and the season after, I think. And so I've seen those first like 6 seasons or so. I think this will be like my 4th time watching them now. But honestly, I don't know if I've seen the last episode. So I fell off and never came back. So.
Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you're going to commit this time now. You're going to stick with
it.
Absolutely.
You got to stick with us. Yeah.
So there's a little conflicting info here. So according to the Wikipedia page, it says at various times since 1998, reruns have been in syndication. It says on FX, SoapNet, Pop.
It was definitely before 98. It might have been as late as 96.
Well, it's usually 100 episodes, right? Gets you to syndication.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would have been.
And they would always be about a season behind the actual show as it was airing. I mean, that's normal. But then they would, that's the season would wrap up on Fox, and they'd add the next season. And but I want to say it may have been as late as 96, but I'm telling you, the WB and UPN both, because they would kind of have the same programming, right? Back in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
And I want to say that it aired weekdays on the WB.
Yeah,
and then
weekdays was WB for sure.
Yeah, and then like Saturday nights on UPN.
That sounds right.
And I think that on UPN they started at like season 4, so you figure they would have been in season 6 as it was airing on Fox. Because I don't think the UPN cycle started from the beginning, because it was just showing it weekly. It was kind of meant to be complementing, I think, the WB airings. But anyway, it did bounce to FX at some point. And I remember watching episodes on FX. But it was well before 98 that they had it in syndication.
Yeah, because they would have hit episode 100 in season 4.
In season 4, I remember episode 100. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was probably after that season, which would have been in 94. So I think that lines up. That would have been probably like fall 94 when season 5 started. They probably fired up on syndication. That seems to line up with your guys' memory.
That sounds right. Yeah, because my sister graduated high school in 97 and moved out. So there's no way. And we watched it for a good like few years before then. So yeah, it had to have been around there.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and dive in to episode 4 of season 1, the first time. So kind of not mincing words here. It's a interesting episode because we're missing a couple of the key players who've been in, and we'll cover that as we move along. This originally aired on October 25th, 1990. We'll cover the soundtrack later, Tim, but I think we missed a couple of pretty well-known songs in this one.
Seems like, yeah.
Airing. I think one of the most infamous ones in this episode, I remembered in one of the scenes what it was. So we'll see if you guys did too. But
I did too, yeah. And I will say that the replacement songs that we were sort of subjected to sort of weren't the worst in the world. Sometimes they really mess with those.
I think they fit the mood okay. It was they were very generic.
Yeah.
Like stock, CBS Studios or whoever had the rights to some kind of music put it in, but yeah.
There was one that was like really bad. That was like an obvious like there's and there was another one that like totally sounded like an Offspring song, but it was still like, yeah, it kind of fits, whatever, fine. But yeah, you do sort of feel that certainly in these earlier episodes.
You know what's strange is that it actually and this is the same thing on like the WWE network, for instance, is I actually don't get super bothered by the replacement music. I which is weird because I'm kind of a completist. But yeah, for whatever reason, I wish they had the real music, but it.
And that's where I am. I think like most things in life, I'm pretty much in the middle on it. I'm like, I would like to have it. I think it'd be really cool, but it doesn't make it where I can't watch it. Like some people are like, oh, I can't.
Exactly.
I'm just kind of.
You'll settle for it. Yeah.
Kind of there. Like I'm fine. Yeah. I'm happy to just watch the show. And sometimes the songs are catchy. All right, why don't we go ahead and dive in? And I thought this was actually a really timely episode for me to watch this today because right off the gate, Brandon is bitching about the air quality in California, saying the air quality index, he's sick of monitoring it. You got earthquakes. He's kind of missing Minnesota hard. And today, where I live, we actually had really poor air quality alert because of the Western Canadian wildfires and the smoke and the that was blowing in. It was like a orange kind of fog haze all over it today. And it was kind of funny when he was saying that. I was like monitoring it. The air as well, so it was kind of funny.
So along those same lines, as my wife watched this episode with me, as she's doing the rewatch with me too. But just before this, we had this very long, very serious conversation because we live in Southern California about moving out of the state, and we brought up some of those same exact issues. And it's like the air quality. He talked about like, the leaves, they don't turn colors. They're just always brown, and not like a healthy brown, but just this disgusting, sick brown. It's like we were saying those same things. It's, and that was 1990. So
1990, yeah.
Some things never change.
Well, if you're looking to move to Minneapolis, you can go role reversal with Brenda Walsh.
There you go.
God.
All right, so we get another kind of through line here, Tim, that we've been following is the treatment of Brenda versus Brandon.
Yeah.
We get a little bit of a hint here when Brenda says when the phone rings, and Brenda says Jim gets mad when they get calls after 11 p.m. But because it's Brandon's Minneapolis ex-girlfriend Sheryl, Jim seems kind of happy. He's like,
he's all into it. Yeah.
And we kind of get the fun family montage of Brandon going from door to door, kind of shutting it. They're peeping down the hallway, kind of. Ear against the door, trying to hear what Brandon and Sheryl talking about.
Now, look, JT, Drew, I don't know how it was done in your households growing up, but I just have written down, how in the hell is Sheryl from Minnesota just popping in for like this overnight trip, not just a visit, an overnight trip, without clearing it with the Walshes? Say nothing about her own family situation, which is the whole thing.
Right, we find out later, but
it's like this has not even been cleared with the Walshes at all. Like they're as surprised as Brandon is, and it's just like, oh, okay,
sure,
see her tomorrow, like.
And she's also calling it like 2 a.m. her time.
Yeah.
Right.
Or I guess 1 a.m. because Minnesota's probably in the Central Time Zone. So it was like, whatever. Either way, they're saying it's after 11 in California.
Right.
So.
It would have been even later for her. I feel like they fucked that up where they thought it was earlier or something.
Yeah, right. And they were calling out there. I think so.
But even if you're willing to let that one slide, how is just? I mean, Jim, sure, but Cindy is obviously going to have a lot of opinions about this, and she's just like, oh, okay, yeah, your ex-girlfriend is staying for the weekend. Like, would that have flown in your house, JT?
I don't know, because I never moved cross country, and like, I feel like maybe if I had a close friend that was like last minute wanted to come, and I was kind of homesick, like maybe, like just regularly, I don't know. I'm not sure.
You're 16, you've never gotten laid, and it's your ex-girlfriend. How about that?
Yeah. I guess it depends if they like the ex-girlfriend or not.
I mean, it's a lot.
Were you
in
guys
1990 at that?
Were you guys like phone hiders, or were you like? Because I know people that were like, like would just sit out in like the kitchen and living room, like in front of their family and talk on the phone.
No way.
Yeah, I was definitely like, I'd be on the corded phone, laying on the bathroom floor, the bathroom door shut, talking.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I wasn't talking to installations. I was probably breaking down, WrestleMania 9 with my friends. But
I was
like,
lucky in some respects in that I had a largely absentee single not her fault. She had to work, but it tended to not be a problem when I needed privacy. I'll put it that way.
A lot of free time. I did own the phone in my bedroom, which I don't know why I didn't always use. I think it was just kind of, you kind of wanted to be around people, but not in front of them. But I owned one of those like clear phones with like, you could see like the gears inside of it.
I can picture.
Yeah. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I had one of those.
Did you have your own phone number?
No.
Oh.
And I want to mention that later because there's a throwaway line later that popped up for me that I wanted to bring that actual save point up. I did not have my own line. It was interesting though, because for a while in Rhode Island, and it's such a small state, there was actually 2 area codes. Like I would call a friend of mine, and she did like, I mean, I could get in the car right now and be at her old house in like less than 20 minutes, and it was a long distance call.
Oh wow, yeah.
Until like just right on the line then or something, right?
Yeah, it's like 98, 99. It was weird because again, it's such a tiny state. It was odd. Anyway, so Cheryl's on her way. She's coming on Friday to visit Callie. So we get to school, and Andrea's probing Brandon because he says, hey, can you get someone to cover the football game? I'm not going to make it. And so I think we're getting some more hints there. We haven't seen it really explored yet, but Andrea's definitely kind of perked up when she hears that Brandon ex-girl is coming into town.
She probably perked down when he mispronounced her name, Andrea, not Andrea. So, yeah.
Yeah, one of the strongest early examples of the kind of sexual tension between Andrea and Brendan here. Brandon, excuse me.
Yeah, it's starting to seep in. We've seen a little here and there, but it feels like maybe the truck is moving a little bit faster now with these two.
Yeah.
All right, so we get Algebra Matt, how I dubbed in my notes. It's Matt, the algebra teacher.
Algebra Matt.
Algebra Matt. He's kind of seems like he's flirting a bit with Brenda. Kind of, heard Donna and Kelly are walking in the hall, and he's like, "Oh, class won't be the same without you." And this is a resurfacing of Donna as well, because we didn't see her, I don't think, in the last episode. So
right.
And as they're coming around the corner, they're kind of giggling to each other, and Kelly whispers, "That's so disgusting," in like a giggly voice, and it's.
What do you think they're talking about?
Yeah, what in the world could they have said about the algebra teacher that is disgusting?
Maybe what Brenda wants to do to him.
Well, yeah, but that's.
Oh, it could just be that she's like likes an older man, maybe, and Kelly's just like.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
that's better. Yeah,
could be a dad kind of thing.
Again, foreshadowing here. We've seen this a couple times though already in the series. Kind of the idea of the flirtatious older teacher and the kids into him. And we'll see it in times to come as well.
It is definitely a running theme for sure on the show. Usually with her brother, but there as well. So we get again now Andrea being kind of a nosy Rosie stalker, really way too into Brandon and Sheryl dynamics, right? Are you nervous? Are you anxiety? You want to get the anxiety out? She says to him, in an awkward way. And then
Do we think that the show is setting up the viewers to be like, oh, we want you to be on board with a Brandon Andrea ship? Like that's our end game. You know, we're gonna build to that. Do we think that they've done that this early on?
Yeah, maybe a little, because I actually feel like indirectly by presenting Sheryl, and even the first episode, right, with never remember her name. What was her name?
Marianne.
Marianne. Brandon is already showing trends of bucking the trend of being into like the typical Beverly Hills blonde, right? Other than that one little Kelly's cute comment, right?
Sure.
Like even here, he's like, she's not like these other girls, right? She's, you know, kind of girl next door kind of thing, right? So it's like, that I feel like they're maybe setting up for, you know, Brandon and Andrea that way, right? That he's into more perhaps the intellectual down home type versus like the typical Beverly Hills blonde.
Yeah. And we're like not supposed to see it coming, but we're also totally supposed to see it coming at the same time.
Right.
Plus Andrea is more of a character than Kelly or certainly Donna is at this point. You know, second to Brenda as the women on this show. Like, you know, it's interesting seeing early Andrea Brandon dynamics.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Also weird is Dylan's plaid pajama pants.
Oh my god.
So at first they look like I guess they're like Zubaz or like Hammer pants, right? But
yeah.
It looked like initially like pajama pants like you'd wear to bed.
Yeah.
Like that was what they looked like. But then they showed the bottom. They kind of had like the tight bottom.
They're elastic. Yeah. We called them in my town. We called them bastard pants.
Oh.
Bastard pants.
So.
Wow.
Was that for kids without dads who wore them?
Well, Dylan, I mean.
I guess.
Yeah, that's true. He fits it.
Yeah, I just thought they were like MC Hammer's pants, you know. Basically.
I mean, look, I definitely had that written down for our fashion category. Was Dylan wearing straight up pajama? I mean, it's not just the pajama pants; it's the white T-shirt. I mean, just plain white T-shirt he has over top. It's like he literally looks like he just rolled out of bed.
Right.
Other than the hair, of course.
You may say. And then David, this is actually one of the funny parts of the episode too. So David comes in and he's like, "Hey, I heard." So this is what we don't see Steve this whole episode, which is depressing because he's been.
What a bummer.
Yeah.
But he does apparently immediately within hours tell David, who I guess they're close enough to tell him this now. That he tells David that Brandon's ex is coming into town. So David happens upon Brandon, and he's like, "Hey, I heard your ex is coming to town," and he tells this long fucking story about a long distance relationship
with a 12-year-old.
Brandon just would rather be anywhere else in the fucking world, and it ends with that the girl never came.
Yeah, because she got strep throat.
Yeah, and he's like, "See, I worried for nothing," and Brandon's like, "Fuck off," But it reminded me of Seinfeld when Kramer tells a story about the pants and he ruins ruining the very pants I was about to return. The very pants. So
right.
It's like, and he's like, "What?" He's like, "Well, what are you gonna do?" Or Peterman, whoever he's telling it to. I think it's Peter. He's like, "What are you gonna wear on the way back?" He's like, "You didn't hear it. Like I never made it." It doesn't even matter, right? Like I never made it to the store.
And that's his point. That's his point. You know,
it doesn't matter what I was gonna wear back because I didn't make it to the store. So David's point is, don't worry because she may not even show up.
And the most amazing part about this is Brandon's first real conversation with David.
Yes.
He kind of introduces himself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so you get Brandon trying to be cordial, you know. It's not like he's totally blowing him off, but he like you said, he wants to be anywhere else. So it's this really funny dynamic. And David, we see him again trying to get in with the gang. And his comedic timing is really strong. I didn't remember David being as good and funny as he is. He's been pretty great so far.
I gotta think that's probably why they keep him around and sped him up to be part of the actual cat. Like, because early on, it definitely felt like him and Scott were going to kind of be like side players.
Yes.
Yep.
But I'm guessing like he was good enough that they were like, "Fuck, like we got to make this, keep this kid around. He's actually pretty good."
Because he's really good, and he kind of steals the scenes when he's on screen a lot of times. And he's got such good.
Have been our favorite.
Exactly. Yeah, he's got such great chemistry with everybody. Also, great '90s look on David. The giant button-up fish shirt, the like blow-dried bowl cut, and the headphones. The wiry, thin headphones around his neck.
I think we're going to find David to be the most in style of every year as we go, Tim. I guess maybe at the end of every season we'll do some class superlatives. I think David will probably win.
Most stylish.
Yeah, him and Kelly, I'm guessing, will be the two.
Best dancer. Best rapper.
All right, so Sheryl shows up early, and this is another like early 90s. I just took an earlier flight. Like just showed up to the now.
And
forget it.
And she's there at the house somehow. Yeah.
It's just like a giant rigmarole to get on a different flight now. But back then, it's like, oh, you want to get on this flight instead? Sure. Let's go there instead of where I'm supposed to go. So that happens, and then everyone's kind of the talking point is a lot of weather talk in this episode. So, it's so hot in November. So I couldn't believe it. Like that was kind of a funny running thing. So this is where we kind of then dovetail into Brandon. And I guess, was it earlier in the episode? I guess I didn't mark it down. It was earlier when he's talking to Dylan. I missed this earlier. So Dylan playing with the robot was funny because like they're still trying to play up that he's like a smart guy,
right?
And he's kind of showing a softer side, but in there, Brandon kind of hints that him and Sheryl never got it on, right? Because Dylan's like, well, when you sleep together, right? And Brandon's kind of like, but they don't really explore it. So they kind of play that out here, right? Where Brandon, he seems a little wishy-washy about her coming. Then she gets there, and he's clearly kind of heated for her again as soon as she comes in, and he really wants to get it in, right? He's like, he shows up in the when she gets out of the shower. He's like, come by at, want to come by in an hour, sneak in, and she's like, I don't want to piss off your parents, kind of thing. But
and Dylan and Dylan can't register his disappointment because he wants to be Brandon's first time.
Yeah, of course.
As
we've discussed. But I mean, he's the ultra cool guy, plays it straight, but yeah.
So, but Cindy even earlier than that's kind of cock blocking Brandon, right? Like they're making out in the room and she goes barreling in. Just let him get it in. Well, what are you doing? Like she's, just sticking her nose in.
She is being pretty obnoxious this episode.
Oh, I couldn't stand her in this episode. So then you get Jim kind of speculating if Cheryl's going to do a little midnight creep through the house, right? He kind of throws that out there.
He really does.
And we're getting the double standard, right, with Brandon and Brenda, how he treats them.
Yeah, and he's got this kind of little smirk on his face every time he talks about Sheryl and Brandon. Like, I don't know. He's kind of living vicariously through Brandon.
Or do you think he's into her?
Maybe.
I think he's just really into his 16-year-old son fucking his out-of-state girlfriend.
That's what it is, yeah.
It's a proud father kind of thing.
He's proud, yeah.
But then Cindy calls it out. She's like, what if that was Brenda,
I know, it even comes up, exactly. The double standard even comes up. And he completely... She doesn't have a boyfriend.
Right,
like that, it's so not answering the question.
He's like, whatever. Like, obviously doesn't give a fuck.
Not give a fuck.
Brandon puts the hard press on Sheryl. He's like breaking out all the lines, right? But make us closer. This is the perfect time. Everything he can to get her in there.
Sheryl is supposed to be sleeping in Brenda's room, on a pull-out mattress. It looked like. I don't
like a fold down.
Yeah, I was like, where did that come from? It's like, it's not like there's a couch in Brenda's room that pulls out, or
maybe Jim got it online, like he got his windsuit.
Could be. Picked it up on the way home.
Well, she does get that bench, right? Because that plays into later episodes. So maybe that there's like a cushion on there.
Opens up into a bed. I love it. The bench is a secret hideaway bed. So yeah, God only knows what Brenda is doing while Sheryl is.
Well, she's sleeping because they do show it. Brenda's like out cold.
Yeah, I guess.
It almost looked like they were actually in the same bed though. Like in that scene, like
it's weird, yeah. Because they definitely make a point of showing the hide a bed, and it's just it's again the continuity on some of these episodes is sort of like they didn't care that much, and they aren't meant to withstand this much scrutiny.
Right.
and it's super creepy when you kind of hear the door open for Sheryl, and Cindy shoots up, like her head shoots up. She's looking all around in the room, but they're kind of doing it to music, so it was just like really over dramatic the way she did it. Like she looked like a fucking giraffe, like her head coming out of the water, like her like a lion coming, like her head flew out.
And it's like Cindy has some kind of spidey sense to like detect her teenage children fucking. Like it's just I don't know, like
it's a mother's intuition.
Right, and she doesn't want it. I think part of it too was like the, maybe it's disrespectful to Cheryl's family, like whatever. She's on their watch, and
I think it's fair enough that she has concerns about her 16-year-old and the ex-girlfriend, doing things in another room.
It's weird.
It's strange, yeah.
So Sheryl makes the move into the room, and then she's hassling Jim. Jim's like, just let him go. And then Brandon's still going heavy on the lines. Like he's there, like in the room in that moment. He's still like, fucking let's go. And she gives in, right? And then we get the, do you have protection? Like it's 1990.
Oh my God.
So we gotta make sure they're not passing it around. And so then he's like, of course, I just don't have anyone to ever protect.
Well, yeah.
What a
Let's
lie.
just say we have a best quote category. So
oh God, that's and so Jim's like, yeah, I'll talk to him tomorrow. And she's like, well, like what happens? He's like, well, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. like there's no, like Jim knows, right? Like
he knows.
They're definitely
he knows
gonna bang. Like he knows, like there's no benefit of the doubt.
And Cindy is stressing, like she can't even sleep. She's like,
but she won't actually do anything about it. That's what's so annoying. Is she doesn't actually like. If she's gonna stress out, why doesn't she just go and stop it or
like if she's so principled but won't like it just makes her look like a dingbat, like she, especially coming off of the episode before this that we covered with her and Brenda having like these intense mother-daughter issues and like bringing up like a lot of kind of deep-seated stuff and seeing a pretty good performance from Carol Potter in this series, and now she's just like the dumb mom who feels old because her kids are fucking now kind of thing. Like it seems to be her issue. It's just so like kind of does her character a disservice.
No, the last two have not been good for her. And Jim is kind of rotating around the other way where he's kind of coming off as much more cool. And he was kind of uptight in the first couple.
And he was the uptight parent earlier. Yep.
It's a real chill ma situation here with Sydney. It's like just look, it's going to happen whether you're going there or not. So did you guys think, though, given that last episode, Tim, if you recall, and Drew, since you watched it, when they were on the couch being creepy and like they've really played up that Jim and Cindy are also kind of sexually active, right? Like each other. Did you think I was waiting for it when Cindy goes, "How am I going to fall asleep now?" And they waited that.
Yes.
I definitely thought Jim was going to be like, well, I can keep you busy. And they were going to both like be fucking at the same time.
Yes, I had that in my notes. I had that written down that you were waiting for that to happen. And it just never did.
Yeah, I definitely thought that's what he was going to make his move too.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
so
we kind of get that knowing glance from Jim, I feel like, which is,
like, well, I'll help you. I can put you to sleep. So the next morning, we kind of get an all-timer scene. Is Brandon blasting the jazz and celebrating and bopping around his room, like clearly having, gotten his first sexual interaction. And the real song used here is "In the Mood," so that's the one I remembered by Glenn Miller. Right. And it's just some kind of dubbed jazz, which wasn't too far off, but that's definitely kind of the infamous one where he's blasting the music.
Yeah.
And
rolling around on his chair.
Yeah, everyone knows right away. He's peacocking around the house,
juggling oranges and whatnot. Like
he made like fresh squeezed orange juice or something.
And Cindy and Jimmy, like they basically said, well, no benefit of the doubt anymore, right? Like I mean, and Jim's still like, well, who knows for sure, right? Maybe he's just in a good mood, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah, with that smirk, he's got that smirk again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he knows what's going on. He's feeling good.
That's
so he's
what's
dancing
up.
around the house. And then we get what I thought was probably the most pointless scene: Brandon and Sheryl driving around Beverly Hills in the car, like looking at different houses and celebrities. Like this felt like a real time killer. And this is where I started to get a little angry. I'm like, we could have like a Steve scene in here somewhere. Like it really felt like they're freezing out the other cast in this episode more so than normal. And we're getting shit like this that didn't really need to happen.
Well, I mean, imagine if we would have gotten a Brandon, like, Steve's in the know. He knows everything. So somehow he finds out that they had sex. And then he comes up to Brandon and he's all interested. He wants the details and all that. That would have been great.
Give us that. Or David. Steve tells David.
Or David, yeah. But,
it's
funny. Just real quick about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. So that scene, first of all, very, very blurry photographs that Sheryl was taking, but also it's an example of something that you see in the early seasons where the tone feels they're still trying to find the rhythm and the tone of the show. So it like she's comedically hanging her whole body out the window, taking pictures.
Right.
Of these houses, and it's an example. They'll do this throughout the early seasons where there's these very goofy little scenes that don't really fit with
nobody
everything else.
Does these things.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And it's really just a way to get them to Dylan in the end. At the best.
Well, and it's also when you listen to, if you ever listen to like interviews with the writers, the producers on the show today, like there's like a YouTube show that is with Charles Rawson, who you'll see is like an executive producer on the first like 5 or 6 seasons. And, Darren Star, who's like a co-creator of the show, that they'll basically say, oh yeah, stuff like this was just, we would love doing these extended montages and pickup shots because it was just like less content that we had to produce. When you're doing 30 fucking episodes a season, you're like you're killing for any opportunity to just throw fluff out there without having to actually write to the scene or to do anything of consequence. Just have something silly like this that is just a time filler. That's exactly what it was, and they're very transparent about it when they talk about it today. It's pretty funny, but it does stand out to your point, JT.
So we get that. We go to Dylan at the Bellage, and they're eating lunch, and Brandon's still kind of putting the press on even before he shows up. He's like kind of, oh, that was amazing, that was great. He's positioning for number 2, right?
Yeah.
Already. Dylan, he's a good wingman, right? Because Brandon kind of, Dylan's putting him over right away. Mm-hmm. And I know it goes sideways quickly from here, but at this point, he's like, no, Brandon told me a lot about you, and you're great, and this and that. So he like immediately steps right in and is trying to help his buddy out here.
And we see yet again, like he's a little bit more mature than everybody else. He's really cool. He's living on his own, so he always presents himself that he's got it all figured out, and he knows just what to say at the right time.
Yeah. And this is a bit of a miscalculation, I feel, on Brandon's part, because number one, he's basically inviting a third wheel situation, which is awkward for anyone. Like when you're with your significant other, especially at like a sit down lunch, dinner, whatever it is. I mean, granted, yes, Dylan lives there, but I don't know, dude, maybe have your meal and then go up and visit him like somewhere else, like in his room or something. Be like, hey, this is my friend, he lives here, isn't that cool, kind of thing. Like it's definitely like you kind of didn't think that one through. Number two is it's Dylan, so even in a third wheel situation, Dylan is gonna kind of own the room, like just because that's who he is. Without trying, he can turn a very uncool situation into being the coolest guy in the room.
Yeah, and he stands out immediately, and you can see why she's kind of like she's looking for stars, she's looking for the Cali experience, and like here's the California bad boy. All of a sudden, plop.
She found it. Yep.
Yeah.
And he kind of name drops like, oh yeah, I know a couple celebrities, they're family friends and that kind of thing.
All right, we can go to this club. They'll be there. Blah blah
blah. What's it called? Contact.
Yeah,
Contact. Great name.
We've had some good club names so far.
I was kind of hoping it'd be another visit to, what was it? The blue parrot, the blue iguana, something like that. But another great club name here.
Nitro. Well, Nitro,
There was
the
Nitro.
Look Good restaurant and the Nitro store last episode.
Yeah, the Nitro store and the Look Good restaurant.
Now we have club contact. So when we go back home and she's kind of prepping, Cheryl's prepping to go out, we kind of get the early Brenda seeds too with a little Dylan curiosity, right? She's like, "Oh, you're going with Dylan, huh?" You know, he's like, kind of, what's he like? So we're getting that there. We got Cindy, you know, does not want this shit going down to her house at all. It's still freaking out. Jim's dodging this sex conversation as much as he can. I'll do it later. I'll do it when I can. You know, and then he's about to finally do it, and Brandon, they gotta leave. They gotta go into Dylan's car to go to Club Contact.
To contact, yeah.
Is that a little strange given how? I mean, Jim's like, he's into this and he knows what Brandon is up to, but he doesn't really want to talk to him about it, and he's kind of putting it off. Does that kind of feel weird to you guys at all?
No, I think he's like Tim said, he's kind of low key proud of his son.
Yeah,
he knows
so he's just kind of letting it happen,
right? Guys are gonna, it's just what it is, right? And
yeah,
I think he's just hoping it'll blow over, she'll leave, and he can forget about it. Never have to have the conversation, right?
Yeah,
and I think, you know, I kind of did think that along the same lines, but I mean, we're not there yet, but I feel like there's an upcoming episode where they actually acknowledge, like, we had the birds and the bees talk when
it's later. It's later in the
It's later. Yeah, it's at the end.
Okay.
Yeah. Says it. So they've already kind of had a baseline discussion. I think
so
what Cindy wanted more.
That they had the conversation, so it's not like, you know, this is all just.
Well, and Cindy kind of says it here. She's like, I'm not worried about them fucking. Basically, it's more like under a roof.
She's our
with
guest.
This girl that we're supposed to be responsible for. You know, that's like seems to be her bigger issue, right? Like, not here, not now.
For God's sakes, Jim, we can't send her home pregnant. I mean, what is her, you know, like.
So we get some of the early cracks potentially with Brandon's jealousy with Dylan, because Sheryl wants to drive in Dylan's convertible and not in, you know, Brandon's shitbox Grand Prix. And, you know, she's like, I'll go with Dylan, you take Brenda, because Brenda's going to take Brenda to algebra Matt's house because he had asked her to babysit. So she's going to go there and babysit his asshole kids. And
great B plot, yeah.
But here's what I didn't understand logistically. So can Brenda not drive yet? She doesn't have her license.
She does. Yeah, she cannot drive yet.
So she can't take the car. So Brandon's going to drive her. So here's what I don't get. Like, why can't they all go in Brandon's car? Or why can't Dylan drop? Because it's clear that Brandon wasn't going to pick her up, right? Because she gets a ride.
Right.
And it's not because he didn't know-show or anything. It's not like she's freaking out. Like, it seemed to be the plan all along that Kelly and Donna would go pick her up after the babysitting gig.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get why they couldn't all just go in Dylan's car and Dylan just drop her off on the way to the club. Like, this was another kind of odd decision here that Brandon had to take his car and go separately to the club from them.
Yeah.
I guess maybe the awkwardness of, well, I mean, it wouldn't matter, you know, 4 people in Dylan's car. I mean, they're going to offload Brenda at some point. Just
does he
basically have Dylan's chauffeur, Brandon and Sheryl in the back seat. It's fine, you know, like.
Yeah. Does he have a back seat in the car?
It looked like.
Okay.
I think so.
Porsche,
I think more than one person in there before.
I mean, I don't think it's a 4-door, but it looks like he does, you know, have. It's maybe kind of a pinch, but
they could do it.
They're teenagers. They don't
or just
care.
go in Brandon's car.
Sure.
They don't have to take the convertible.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, that was a lot. So
clearly transportation is not an issue. I don't know why this was such a logistical.
Right.
Snafu.
And why can't Jim and Cindy take her to the job? Like, that's another option. Like,
yeah.
Why does Brandon have to take her? You know, when he's going out, he's got big plans. So.
And they're like all kind of pressed for time. Like she's, you know, I gotta get to, you know, like I don't know, just.
You never really see Jim and Cindy dropping the kids off anywhere.
You don't. No.
All right, so we get to
the
algebra
I guess.
House. We go to their house, and they suck. The algebra kids are not good at all. They're pricks. They're algebra Elliot and algebra Lisa.
Yeah, they're total assholes.
They're real pricks. So Brenda's like, "Oh, I got a gift for you," and they're fighting over her purse candy. They spill her whole purse. The wife is a real shitbag.
Yeah, real battle axe, huh?
Oh my lord, she is all over just all
algebra math.
Algebra math. Like, what are you're gonna wear that? Let's go. We gotta make this movie. We're gonna be late, and she's kind of shitting on Brenda too. Like, and then this brat, fucking Elliot, like, being a dick on the floor with the candy. And Matt's just like, oh well, shucks, like you can tell he's kind of embarrassed, but also just kind of try to get the fuck past.
They're very invasive of personal spaces, which I mean, a lot of little kids can be, but it's very intense with these little shitheads.
It's also interesting too, is they kind of make it like they're rich, but I guess it's Beverly Hills, but he's also like a high school math teacher,
right?
Unless she has some big job, I guess, but. It's an interesting presentation that they're presented as kind of the upper crust of Beverly Hills, the way they do it. She's kind of got the nice outfit on, and the way she's talking and everything, kind of feels like they're a little entitled.
Maybe they're more like sort of aspirational, trying to
keeping up with the Joneses, as they say. Good 90s look on the wife, though.
Yes.
The pantsuit, swoopy hair, the gigantic scarf that goes down to her knees.
Yes.
So Brandon shows up late to the club, and it's kind of a baller move. He kind of triggers a riot and then sneaks behind the
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
And then we see Dylan and Sheryl are kind of grinding on the dance floor a little bit. And I don't know if we need to go that heavy from them, but this whole thing goes sideways quickly, and there's some issues here too. So
it goes 0 to 100 pretty quick.
Brandon comes in, and Dylan, and he's like, thanks for waiting for me, right? Like, and Dylan's like, I gave your name, and Brandon's like, I guess not. But we never saw him actually ask.
He didn't. He just blew kind of right past him.
Blew past him. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so like he's kind of being a dick for no reason, and I get it. He's probably pissed because he sees Dylan and his girl dancing, and he's already kind of jealous. And Dylan's gonna like back off. But this to me, like, also like. I'm kind of pro Dylan in this whole episode, except for this one.
Oh yeah,
like he's really kind of dancing close with her, and he tries to play it off like it's her, and maybe he's trying not to offend her, but it really they didn't do a good enough job of showing him being like resistant to her.
Yeah,
I'll agree with that.
In a way, I almost feel like this is. I mean, Dylan is Dylan, and he almost just can't help it, even though. He's not trying to do anything. He's not trying to make a move on her, turn this into anything sexual. It's just, he's just kind of going with the flow.
Trying to give her a fun night kind of thing.
Trying to give her a good time. And, at the same time, he definitely knows that there's a limit to this, but yeah, it's like you get the sense that he wasn't expecting Brandon to walk up on them right then and there like he did. But Brandon is out of control here at Contact. This is wild.
We get there's at one point we get a classic Brandon. His move when he's mad is he turns around, he walks away and talks to the person, and then throws his head over his shoulder. Keep track of that throughout the series.
You get the hair flip that goes with it. So he's being a real dick to Dylan. It feels like a real mega power situation here, where is Dylan making the move or is he just protecting her? And Brandon's super jealous. And then basically Dylan says like, "Hey, look, buddy, like she made the move on me. I didn't do shit." And Brandon punches him in the face. So this is kind of the first blow in their friendship. Like, and everything's kind of unraveling on Brandon. And then we go to the bar and Cheryl's drinking some fucking Sex on the Beach Blue Lagoon drink.
Some blue motorcycle type drink, yeah.
And she just blows Brandon up. She's like, sex didn't mean shit. You're not my first. I've already done it. And he just loses his fucking mind. And the first question is, who was it with? And I didn't write down the name of the guy who said it.
I certainly did. The quote is, who was it? Jack Taylor? He always wanted to jump your bones.
Is that Kelly's dad?
I was like, they couldn't come up with another last name. Like, they already have a Taylor. But we can't have the same last name. But that, so, I mean, that was, like, nasty. So, like, she really slings it at him. And then he wants to know who. And she's like, fuck you, I'm out of here. And he's like, good luck. And then she gets in a cab and drives off. But
we get a clip of him running after her, and that's from future openings, I think.
Yes. Yes, it sure is. The dramatic run and stop action there. But he also slings her drink like right across the bar.
It
like
breaks it, yeah.
Right? Like, how is he not getting thrown out of this
Right.
contact? I mean, this man is an absolute maniac.
I wanted to go back to the punch that they do.
Yes,
I thought
please.
So Dylan doesn't fight back, which again, we got to show that Dylan. I think this is kind of a big moment where you expect him to fight back and he doesn't, because he tries to do. There's instances they set up that, again, like he's in control and he's the cool guy. He's always the cool guy.
Like he knows Brandon's gonna realize later this was a mistake. He's not gonna make it worse, and he knows Brandon will come around, and he's just like, look, buddy, like get your shit together.
It's an interesting dynamic for sure, because this is maybe the first time we see Brandon's insecurity around Dylan, which I mean is going to come up over and over and over again. I mean, for looks reasons, for money reasons, for charisma reasons, whatever it is. That is going to be a defining trait, I think, of their relationship. And at the same time, Dylan, I mean, for whatever reason, wants Brandon's approval. And he's, I mean, very hurt by this and doesn't fight back. But you can tell, like, when he spits back in Brandon's face, like, you need to figure out who your friends are.
Right.
Because it's like, hey, I've accepted you, pretty much from day one.
And he's been his friend since the start. We've seen that unconditionally so far.
Unconditionally, yep. So
they should have kissed right then.
That's what I'm telling you. Like it's leading up to a kiss.
Yeah.
So that's an intense scene. All of it. They're all out of their minds in the scene. Cheryl does not help.
Yep.
We go back to the algebra home, and Elliot gives the guess what? My dad has a penis. And I was trying to. Does this predate Kindergarten Cop? It does, right? Is that later in the 90s?
Oh, is Kindergarten Cop is like 91 at the latest, right?
I think it's a 90 movie.
Really?
I think it is. I know I saw it in the theater, and I feel like it was with my dad in
December 21st, 1990. So this does predate it.
Oh,
wow.
By a couple weeks.
Yeah, so there you go. This is the original My Dad is Gonna See This. And he's going to set up the vagina line, right? And Brenda cuts him off because he's like, man, guess what else? And she's like, I don't even want to fucking know. So the doorbell rings. Kelly and Donna come in. And, Elliot gives a yank on the hair. I thought Kelly was kind of might be into that. But she wasn't.
Yeah, maybe not from a 7-year-old.
And then they fish out a photo album from the bedroom, and they're looking at that, and then the algebras come home, and Mrs. Algebra is like a bitch. She's like complaining, look, if you came home and your kids were in bed, and it's not like Brenda's throwing a fucking party, like they're quietly sitting looking at pictures on the couch, like, but she's bitching about the movie, like, oh, she seems like the worst person. She's like, it's bad enough I had to sit through that bad movie. Now I got to come home to this. It's like they're literally sitting peacefully. Yeah, the kids are in bed.
They're being kind of nosy, but they're teenage girls, and they did what they were supposed to, or Brenda did what she was supposed to do. Who cares?
It's not like the house is a mess or like was trashed or anything. Like,
I mean, like there's kids' toys out, but it's like that. I don't think that was part of their expectations that the house would be clean either. When they got
just not these shithole. Yeah, that's all.
Maniac children.
Yeah, this was again, they didn't have her in any kind of positive light. So then in a creepy moment too, Algebra Matt was like, well, now how much do I owe you? So maybe that's why Kelly knew he was a creeper, and that's what she meant earlier in the episode when she was like, that's gross. Like maybe they kind of knew he was creepy. It's not that Brenda was into him, it's more that he seems to be creeping on 16-year-olds.
He enjoys these transactional relationships.
Right. It's a little weird. Like I feel like in later seasons he makes the move on Brenda. They weren't quite there yet.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so then we get the big twist. We find out that Sheryl ran away and came to California without anybody knowing. So we get a big shit show in the Walsh house because her mom calls Cindy finally, desperate, and Cindy kind of tells the family, everyone except for Brandon, that she's on the lam. And then Brandon goes to the hotel, and we get a kind of a quick reconciliation. He kind of moves past it. He's like, "Where is she?" And she's puking in the fucking bathroom. And Dylan's like,
blue
"Look, buddy."
motorcycles will get the best of him.
And again, Dylan's giving the tough love. He's like, "I'm not going to tell you. Like, you got to fucking talk to her and figure it out. Like, I'll leave. Order some room service if you want. Whatever you want." So Dylan, again, being a good friend, and Brandon, kind of comes in and doesn't straight up apologize, but they're cool. Like, he's not coming at him again. And that's when Sheryl kind of unloads and talks about her family issues and her stepdad being a piece of shit and this and that. And the Walsh family was like her comfort food, right? And then they left, and now she had nowhere to go. So she's embraced this other side of the tracks persona, because that's all she has. And then Brandon says, "We're going to order ice cream for room service."
We don't really get Brandon visually like apologizing or really like showing like that he cares too much about her, though.
Right.
I mean, I guess that's him in his own way, but
that's a good point, because it's sort of Brandon doing what will become a very Brandon thing of doing like the sympathy face without really saying the words in connection with that. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. He can pull it off though, Jason Priestley. It's like this sort of sad story of basically why Sheryl fucked Jack Taylor, and we guess in Brandon's absence. So sort of low stakes, but at the same time, we do get some answers here in a way.
Yeah, right. Basically, like, I banged him. I'm rebelling. She's rebelling, right? Because her family situation sucks, and she doesn't have the security blanket anymore. So here's where we get Cindy's, because so Sheryl basically comes home and said, "Can I call home?" And Cindy says the phone in our room is private. And I was trying to figure out, did she mean it's private in that no one else is around, or is it private that they have a separate line in their room?
I thought it was that it's in their bedroom and there's a door that there's no one around, because otherwise it's the wall phone that she's using.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Plus, consider Cindy's war with the phone company from whichever episode. Was that our second or third?
That was the third episode, yeah.
Where it was like they had trouble even like getting a phone number or something because they were new, and it just, I don't know, it just seems unlikely that they would have a separate line given all their issues with the phone company. Which, again, is maybe our most 90s moment. I don't know. So
that's that. She's calling home. We're kind of seeing like maybe we're cleaning up a bit. Brenda's complex kind of pops up here again, and she's like, "Why is Brandon getting the easy road on all this?" And Cindy's like, "No, I'm mad." But what did Brandon really do? Like, to warrant Brenda being like, he didn't know she ran away from home. It's not like he was abetting her, right? And Brandon doesn't know yet that they banged. So it's like, I think this was a little unwarranted. Like, I don't see why she's like, Brandon gets away with everything. Like, what did he really do in this spot? Like, he wasn't in on this.
Yeah, that is true. I think I was assuming that Brenda kind of knew that they had sex, but she doesn't. No, right, nobody really does. Yeah. No. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, like, I mean, maybe she does know. I mean, Sheryl was
they did have
the
music playing and all that.
They had the music playing. Sheryl was supposed to be sleeping in Brenda's room, and all of a sudden she disappears in the middle of the night. Brenda wakes up. Like, what else could they be doing? Like.
Yeah, but even then, it's like, she seemed like she was meant more that, why does he get away with this stuff? Meaning, like, her running away from home and being, like, I felt that's what she was getting at more.
Yeah. More so than the sex thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So Sheryl and Brandon kind of have their come to Jesus in the bedroom. Sheryl says, "When we made love, it was special." Gives him a little bit of relief, so he's not completely miserable on the way out. He's still obsessed with who the first time.
Yeah. Then he responds by asking her who it was again.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
And she's like, "It doesn't matter. Like, it didn't mean anything, and you're my first that meant something." So Brandon's kind of getting blue balled emotionally. But we do again end, as we have almost every episode, with Brandon crowned king because Sheryl kind of gets interrupted. She's like, I want to say one thing I realized, and then she gets cut off by the cab. But then they go downstairs, and right in front of Brenda, she says, "You're a wonderful lover." So,
Jesus.
and he's kind of smiles. So we leave again with Brandon as king, even though it seemed like he was going to get left in the lurch with her on the way out.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's got to end up on top. Send the people home happy, right?
So Brandon,
you're a wonderful son. You're a wonderful writer. You're a wonderful lover.
Right. Every episode has been a new one. You're a good fuck, Brandon. Thank you.
You're a wonderful lay. Yeah.
Well, he saved a life in episode 2, right? So like he's kind
of hero. Yes.
Right. I mean,
at least Brenda did have some. She was there at least, so she got some credit.
What was last episode? What did he do last? Didn't he do something last episode? He was fighting for the rights of the every man.
Yeah. That's right. God.
Yeah, so he blew the roof off the Good Times Looking Good restaurant.
The scandal. Yeah, the scandal at Good Times restaurant.
So he's an advocate too, activist. All right, so we finally get the relationship talk. This is a kind of a cool scene out in the basketball court. And I know he didn't mean it this way, and it was definitely not written this way, but it made me laugh when Jim said, "Did Sheryl get off okay?"
Yeah.
It's a great double entendre.
I really feel like they knew what they were doing.
Because he almost says it with a smirk. And then, again, Jim's kind of cool with Brandon fucking. Just a real guy's guy, yeah. Jim Walsh in this one.
Is there anything else you want to tell me about it? Or whatever he says.
Any details?
Yeah, any details? Yeah.
But then, I don't know if you guys... Tim, I know you're not a sports guy, but Drew, I don't know if you picked up on this. This may have been the lowest basketball hoop ever. Like Jim goes for a layup and he almost dunks it. He's like he barely comes off the ground. Is this like Brandon?
Yeah, Brandon dunks the basketball.
Yeah, I mean Jim is like head high to the rim when he goes in for the layup.
Yeah. This is like you're in 4th grade and you're having the slam dunk contest, so you put the adjustable hoop at 5 feet or 7 feet, whatever it is.
It's like maybe because the garage is low, like it had to be that way, but
yeah,
that'll fuck up your shot, man. What are you doing? You can't shoot with that little bit.
Also, these actors, I think, are kind of I don't want to say short, diminutive. It's maybe the word.
Yeah, the Jim's out there at 6'6", you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know that these are the tallest.
Fucking Robert Parrish coming out there. What's going on? So, and that wrap up.
Jim's looking good though in his basketball gear.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
He made some strides in this episode because he struggled a bit before this. So.
Yes.
So I like this episode. I should say I don't know if I liked it. It was okay. It was all Walsh centric though. A lot of wasted space to me. I guess it's fine for a special of the week kind of teen drama deal. But just not a lot of movement. We got no Steve, one David, a couple Kellys that were throwaway. I hated Cindy in this episode. I thought she was super annoying. I'm all for her being the mom and the good mom and all that, but this was like, she was kind of creepy at times, just way over the top. I didn't like Sheryl either at all. Like, I found her super annoying.
She was kind of flat too. Like she just didn't have much there. And I think Sheryl, like I said, I think if Sheryl would have been like actively kind of like meddling and everything, it would have changed the dynamic a little bit. But she just was she wasn't doing anything, but she was still complaining about it all. So I don't know.
Well, it feels too like, I don't know. Like I don't know. They're almost making like bipolar. Like she's all excited to see the celebrities in the car, and then she's miserable. Then she's fucking Brandon. Then she hates Brandon. Like she's kind of all over the.
Yeah, I mean she alludes to like a broken home and her main stepdad. So I don't know. It's kind of a interesting portrayal of like adolescent chaos, right?
But she wasn't that brooding or bad. Like we just saw that in the previous episode or whatever it was two ago with what's her name, Kelly's friend. Like we just kind of had that, with the broken home and the bad girl. So I don't know. I just would have been better, I think, if they didn't even address all that. That she just visited, they had sex, but she realized maybe it's not going to happen anymore because they're from different parts of the country and live different lives. Like I think that would have been fine enough without adding this complexity of broken home. The Walshes were her family. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just felt like it felt like crammed in, even though there wasn't a lot going on, but it still felt crammed in.
Well, because it kind of turned it into like a Sheryl episode rather than a Walsh or even like a Brandon episode. Because there's like you said, there's so much that you could have done with, like, okay, Brandon like had sex for the first time. This is a huge moment in his life. This kind of changes everything. And now how do they conduct themselves after that? Like, they didn't even go into that much, like their relationship or their feelings for each other changing after that. It was kind of, they had that brief scene, but she kind of took off.
He obviously fell for her more. Like,
he did, yeah.
Oh, big feelings again, right? I mean, he's all over at the restaurant. You know, he's super jealous and protective. Like,
yeah.
But she
like,
definitely different.
Yeah, there's no play off of that really, other than her like just kind of indifference.
Yeah, I will say that this is not a great episode. But for an episode that's basically its A plot is Brandon gets laid for the first time. I do kind of appreciate that Sheryl kind of had her own shit going on, even though, like, I would not say she's a great character by any means. But I sort of appreciate that it wasn't just she's there to just fuck Brandon and go home kind of thing, which, I mean, no, we're not going to see her again, but there is more to it than that, right?
Well, maybe should they have done two, even though we're saying I didn't like her. Would this have been better maybe spread if we get a different B or C plot with the rest of the gang?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then also Cheryl's here for 2 episodes. So in this one, maybe they hook up and then, they're doing okay, and then it slowly falls apart. The Dylan thing is kind of like a little bit of I guess they weren't really quite doing cliffhangers yet, so.
Right.
They're kind of doing independent episodes.
It definitely feels too sort of insular, like it's a very much like an episode in a vacuum sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think that's what we do establish in because this is the 4th episode, and so it does feel like this is a very like teen drama of the week series at this point. Like, everything's going to be wrapped up, and each thing is self-contained to these stories, and there's like a different girl of the week and all that. I do think that's what this kind of has established, that like they have a template for the show at this point.
Yeah, it's definitely been heading that way for sure. I thought Brandon was good as always, but Dylan was awesome in this one.
Yes.
And honestly, the rest is kind of a wash, other than, it kind of serves to show Brandon maybe severing ties with Minnesota. Like, in the beginning of the episode, he's super homesick and missing out and misses. But by the end, it's kind of like, you know what, maybe shit's changed. Like, here's another piece of my past that's faded. To push him further toward embracing Beverly Hills. So I feel like that's what this whole episode was about.
It's also kind of the show's commentary on class in a way, because it's sort of like, okay, the Walshes now, they moved out from Minnesota, like you said. We're about the high life now. And while we have shown kids who have come from a broken home, you talk about Kelly and Tiffany and Marianne and all these, various characters, it's like they're still kind of glamorous, and you have Sheryl, who's like has those same similar issues, but she's sort of presented like a piece of shit. Like, I mean, I don't know if that's intentional or if it's the show making a statement about like, oh well, it's okay if you come from a broken home but you live, this certain lifestyle, but if you're from the working class, it's sort of you can't stay on the show. Like, it's just you don't fit in. You know what I mean? Like, we don't deal in those kind of values.
All right, let's hit our awards here before we wrap up things. So, best scene, I had Brandon's morning after celebration, and the most poignant scene in the episode.
I liked the Dylan and Brandon fight scene. I thought that was good.
I think I like the Dylan and Brandon fight too.
All right, most important scene. I went with Brandon getting it in.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, gonna be a hallmark of the series.
Most 90s look. It was a lot tonight, Drew. You chronicled a lot of them. I ended up going with the Dylan's plaid hammer pants.
They're hard to deny.
Look, yeah. I mean, that gets my vote too, although I have to call out Brenda dressed, I don't know how to put it, like a Romani matriarch for her babysitting gig. I'm trying to be respectful. Like, I don't... You've also got, Andrea doesn't figure into this category a lot, but we do have an opportunity here because she's got her black on brown ensemble, which is like this black blouse over safari shorts.
Yeah, like gigantic brown shorts.
Yeah. And of course, Brandon's like just a classic look with his purple monochrome t-shirt with one pocket, of course, and the cuffed sleeves. It's we got to bring some of these looks back, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
All right, so most 90s moment, I had 3 of them. I had Sheryl calling after 11 p.m. on the landline.
Okay.
I actually had 4. That, Cindy with the separate phone line deal or whatever the fuck was going on there. Mm-hmm. Sheryl getting the earlier flight easily. And then this one we didn't really talk about, but Brandon like kind of abandoned on the club. He can't call his friends. Like, he has no way to call them to say,
"Oh,
yes, I'm here, let me in. Where are you?" Right? He's gonna find his way in the club and hope they're inside.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That was mine. Is any kind of communication issue that was instantly solved by cell phones, but don't have that there.
I guess that's kind of a standard.
Well,
we used to do our Seinfeld rewatch on the website. That was always like one of those. Like, half of these episodes could be solved if there were cell phones, right?
Totally.
Mine was very along similar lines, which is Cheryl's parents having no idea where she is.
Yes.
Like, taking it, and it just takes days to get in touch with her. Like,
no social media,
that would never happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do also think all the mentions of like safe sex and protection and were you careful, all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very 1990. Like we said earlier, there, making sure that all the people know, like, we're not spreading AIDS around. So, best lesson learned, I went with always have protection even when you have no one to protect.
Wow, that's a great one. I put, I always have a perverted slant on these lessons. Don't put too much stock in your first sexual experience.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a good one.
Call.
Drew?
Yeah, protection was a big one. Some kind of general listen to what the other person is saying, or something like that, because no one really listened to what Sheryl was saying, or Brandon, didn't really want to hear. He didn't want to hear that Dylan was saying that she was hitting on him,
ignoring him.
Maybe don't crush on your teacher when you're 16. Also,
that's
not that it goes anywhere, but it's just good advice.
All right, best hookup, I think, is the easiest one. Is Brandon and Sheryl.
Yes.
Yeah, although, I mean, what could have been Brandon and Dylan, but...
I know, again, we're teased with that.
Or Brenda and Mad Algebra.
Mad Algebra.
A very, very great value, like a 99-cent store, Ellen Thick.
Yes, that's great.
Let's talk to Thicks. All right, so Brandon... so for best quote, I had 3 noted. And 2 were when Brandon's trying to get Sheryl into bed. And the first one is like the ultimate player desperation line. You just won't know till you do it. Then you look back and see how special it was.
Not true.
The other one was what I said earlier. There's always been my issue. Lots of protection and no one to protect.
That's mine.
And then Jim's, did Sheryl get off okay? I had to make a special note.
Very honorable mention, yes. Okay, well, let's also give it up to son algebra. Brenda, guess what? My daddy has a penis.
Yes. Elliot algebra.
Elliot algebra, yes.
I did like Brandon's angry. Who was it? Jack Taylor. He always wanted to jump your bones.
That was good too. Brandon really had the lines on this one. All right, final grade out of 10. We went through our earlier grades when we opened the episode. This to me felt like a substantial step back. Less of the supporting cast, a lot of dead scenes. Sheryl as the girl of the week was not very good. Cindy was really annoying. So I went 3.5 out of 10 on this one.
Wow.
Not a big fan.
I'm going 4.
I am likewise going to go 4, while acknowledging it's not a very good episode. I still found it very entertaining. I mean, we certainly got a lot of material out of it. And there's a part of me that just sort of appreciates that a 1990s teen drama could do an episode about like a kid having sex for the first time, and it's just fine. Like, it's not that big a deal. Like, there's not really any negative consequences. Yes, there's some drama, but it's not like, oh, now she's pregnant. Oh, now we have AIDS. Right. Now, it's just a thing that happened. And I just sort of appreciate that for a 1990s messagey sort of show.
Yeah, that's a good call. I do think there was also, I think the development in Brandon and Dylan's relationship was important in this one.
True.
And it also showed that Brandon is, I mean, he, kind of regained his crown at the end, but it showed him as a vulnerable, flawed person as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, a little bit of my grade was resetting the standard. Because like we talked about, like I know we got a lot of episodes to go. They're not all going to be middle to great, right? So I had to kind of draw a baseline somewhere on this one. Felt like it, was what would be a lesser episode. So I didn't want to go again too high on this one. I wanted to kind of try to reset the curve.
Sure.
This was much. I mean, we kind of touched on it, but this episode was way worse than I remembered it. I remembered it being like, oh man, this is awesome. I can't wait to do this. But not that great on the rewatch.
All right, so that's our grades. Why don't we get to our trackers before we finish off? So new characters in this episode. We had Algebra Matt. We had Minneapolis Sheryl. We had Mrs. Algebra. Then we had Algebra Lisa and Algebra Elliot.
That's great.
The whole Algebra family.
That should cover it, yep.
For relationships, I noted 2. We had Brandon and Sheryl, obviously. And then we had Matt and Mrs. Algebra.
Yep.
I didn't count Brenda and Mr. Algebra because I feel like nothing really happened there.
Probably wouldn't be appropriate.
I had only noted Club Contact as the place, but I guess the Algebra House we could put in there as well, right?
Algebra Household, yeah.
Okay. All right, let's do our character rankings, and we'll total them up. So coming off of our total from after the first 3 episodes, we have Brandon in first place with 33 points, Brenda in second with 26, Steve in third with 25, David in fourth with 22, Dylan coming on strong despite not being in the pilot at 21, Cindy behind him at 19, Kelly at 17, Andre at 13, Jim at 9, Scott at 9, who was also not in this episode, Donna at 3, and Nat at 2. So the way we usually do this is we kind of do a consensus rank on the characters. You can base it, Drew, on this episode, but also factoring in previous a little bit too. Like, I don't want to straight, punish it. Like, I'm not going to bump Steve down to last because he wasn't in this, right? Like, I'm going to still factor in his work leading up to this. So, for me, I had a new number 1. For the first time, I'm putting Dylan at number 1.
Yes.
Brandon's been my number 1 for the first.
Yes.
Okay. Brandon number 2.
Yep.
Brandon 2.
Okay. I had Brenda 3.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Might as well. I mean, yeah. There's not much competition for that.
I feel like she had a pretty good episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Brandon episode, but Brenda's in there. She gets the B plot, even though it's stupid. Like, she's in there. It's okay.
All right, so for me, a guy that I have not had very high yet, but he catapults up to 4th is Jim Walsh.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll agree.
Okay. I put Steve at 5 because, again, his body of work has been so strong. I didn't want to punish him and cost him in the overall rankings too much.
Yes, that's fair.
He's not here at all, but you definitely don't want to bump him too much more than we already have.
I was really bummed that Steve was not in this episode. He's my guy.
He's been so good so far.
He's been our guy doing this. Yeah. I mean, surprisingly, I think throughout this podcast. But
yeah,
I feel bad dinging him as much as we have here.
So I had Cindy next, but I could be convinced to put David above her based on his one scene. If you guys are feeling
I would put David above him. Yeah.
Based on his body of work to date, yes. And I think if anything, Cindy takes a step down this episode, coming off of a stronger.
Well, we had her fourth before, so now we're bumping her all the way down.
That was pretty
strong.
Yeah. Yep.
So would you have her ahead of Kelly still?
I would still have. Thinking about.
Yeah,
I would say. Yeah, so far. I don't think it's going to last, but. I'm okay with still Cindy ahead of Kelly by the thinnest of margins. Drew?
Yes. Yeah, because we just haven't seen much of Kelly.
Okay, so Kelly next, then Andrea, or would you move Andrea above Kelly?
I thought Andrea, yes, I would move her above Kelly.
I feel like I would too, even though it feels like Andrea's taken a hit in recent episodes. She sort of started out as a stronger character, and she's just kind of feels like she's just had cameos in the last couple of episodes. But I mean, she's still more than Kelly here. Yeah. She did more than Kelly, and she's still putting in. I mean, she's still putting in appearances. Unlike Steve or Scott, who are just totally absent. It's like they're still making an effort to include her for whatever reason.
Right. Okay, then the last three I kept the same: Scott, Nat, Donna. That's not a last, even though she was in the other two.
Maybe Scott. I mean, maybe Donna goes over Scott in this, based on this. But
no.
Yeah, I like the idea of Donna being last.
Yeah,
that's fine. That's fine.
I want to bury her enough that she can never make it up to overall. All right, I'm going to run the numbers for the final overall character ranking, and then we'll do the soundtrack. But real quick, Tim, you want to talk about anything you got going on podcast-wise?
Yeah. So in addition to this podcast, you can find me on one of our sister podcasts, that being the Jenny Position. That is curated by Jennifer Smith, my frequent podcast partner, where we do, most notably probably over there, a Marvel Cinematic Universe Rewatch podcast. It's called The Journey Through Infinity. That also includes you, JT, and our friend Scott Criscolo. Most recent installment of that was covering Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yep. So
more than halfway through the Marvel Cinematic Universe to date. Keep trucking along there. If you're interested in those movies, do check that out. Again, The Journey Through Infinity on the Jenny Position. We also have Talkin' Pop. That's myself and Jenny and a guest of our choosing. Kind of just a, variety show, talk show, whatever you want to call it. It's whatever we want it to be. A very fun show that Jenny and I do together. And I think that'll do it for my purposes. You can find me on social media as well. I am at Cyke68, CYKE68 on Twitter. If you want to chat me up about 90210 or Marvel or whatever it is. Can't say I'm a big sports fan, so I don't know why you'd want to engage me in sports, but that would be an interesting experience if you did. But in any case, you can find me at Cyke68 on the Twitter, and yeah, that should cover it.
Drew, anything you want to mention?
Yeah, I am on Twitter at _burning spirits. Be on the lookout for Chad Campbell and I. We should have another edition of our GWCW countdown coming out within the next couple weeks, and hopefully Jenny and the Gyms will be back at some point on the PTB and wrestling feed. And I am working on a podcast idea. Don't have a timeline as to when it'll be out, but I'm working on something. But yeah, if anyone else wants to do a podcast or something, I don't know, get in touch.
All right, very good. Okay, I've crunched the numbers. They've been run, so here we go from bottom to top. In last place, Donna Martin with 4 points. Right above her, Nat Pasuccio also with 4 points, but I give Nat the tiebreaker. I think we all agree on that.
Sure.
Scott Scanlon with 12 points. Then Andreas Zuckerman with 18. Jim Walsh with 18. I give him the tiebreaker based off his strong episode here tonight. I think he's had the bulk there. Kelly Taylor with 21. Cindy Walsh with 25. Coming back to the pack a little bit. She's kind of right around the same spot, I guess. David Silver with 29 points. And then our top four, Dylan McKay with 33. Steve Sanders with 33. I gave Steve still the slight nod on the tiebreak because of he had the extra episode. Well, actually, I guess they're tied now, right? They've each had 3. So they're knotted up at 33. And then the Walsh children still continue to be our top 2. Brenda with 36 points and Brandon with his commanding lead of 44. So it's going to be some real work. I think Dylan's probably got the best shot to catch Brandon, but it's going to take some work because I don't think we're going to have too many episodes where Brandon's not like top 3. So Dylan not being in that first episode really hurt him in these overall ranks.
Yeah, no doubt. Interesting to follow the climb that I think we're going to see the ascent of Luke Perry here. And it's a real kind of wacky character ranking we've got going on right now, just based on the exposure of these characters and their actors, what they've been given to do. So still a lot of room here to shake things up.
All right, real quick, here are the songs that we didn't hear tonight. Dreamlike State by Erasure. That was when Sheryl comes in to see Brandon in his room. Of course, In the Mood by Glenn Miller in his orchestra. That was The Next Morning. I Want to Be Rich by Calloway for Sheryl and Brandon in the car. So another well-known song. And also another well-known song, Hippie Chick by Soho, when Brandon comes to the club. Contact, that's what's playing in the club. So there you go. These are 4 songs that we missed out on.
Yes. Sadly absent on most media.
All right, so I think that'll do it. It's another great episode. It was great digging in, Drew. We'll get you back on the guest list. You deserve a better outing than what you had here.
No
for
doubt.
Sure. But, excited for you to continue on your track, no doubt. We'll be back, Tim, in a few weeks with another special guest. We'll be digging into episode 5. Until then, be sure to check out everything we have to offer on the North-South Connection Podcast Network. There's a couple other pop culture shows like this. There's some comics-based material, and, of course, a lot of pro wrestling. If you're into that, check that out as well. I'm at JT the Pod Guy on Twitter or Facebook.com/RedStuckConnection. You can leave us any feedback. Again, feel free to connect with me if you're interested in being on the show. We're happy to have any new voices that love Beverly Hills 90210 and want to be a part of the action. So, a little dim sum, a little den sum. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.